I got an intro.
Hey everybody, it's Ronnie O'Quinn, bass player for Fog Hat, and you're listening to Jimmy Deal on Hamilton Radio. Woo!
And by the way, what a great guy Rodney was too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, Jimmy? So I'm Doc G. This is Jimmy Deal, and this is Jimmy Deal Celebrity Spotlight. Today's special guest is Heavenly Cream, the band. This is the tribute band for your dad, Jack Bruce. Welcome,
Yes.
Welcome, Malcolm. How are you? How you doing?
Hey,
man?
Jimmy. Hey, Doc G. I'm doing great, thank you.
Great.
Yes,
Great
just
to
to
have
clarify, great to be here. Just to clarify, Heavenly Cream is a record. It's not really a band. It's kind of a conglomerate of a bunch of us that made a record, really spearheaded by Pete Brown, the Cream lyricist, who passed away earlier this year. So it's a wonderful acoustic tribute to Cream that we recorded at Abbey Road Studios with a host of wonderful contributors.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about Heavenly Cream. Tell us about putting it together. I know it's been a long time in the making, right? It was not an overnight project.
Yeah, well, we first floated the idea back in 2017, and then we recorded the project in 2018. We had a guy called Mark Waters come in and shoot a documentary about the making of the record. And then by the time we were ready to release, some viral thing happened and the whole world closed down for a while. So I think the label kind of just held back a little bit.
Right.
And so hence it's been kind of like a 5-year process from beginning to end. It just came out November 3rd, the record. So yeah, absolutely. A long process for sure.
And so many great artists on the record, including Ginger, right? Tell us about that. I mean, that must have been fantastic. He's no longer with us, unfortunately.
Yes, it was actually his last ever recording session, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was fantastic. He came in on 2 separate occasions. The first time was with a great singer called Nathan James from the band Inglorious,
Right.
but also with Pee Wee Ellis, the sax player from James Brown's band and many other projects. Henry Lowther, who is a celebrated British trumpet player, Abbas Dodu, who's Ginger's friend and frequent collaborator in his bands.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second time he came in was with Joe Bonamassa and Bernie Marsden, Neil Murray and Abbas as well, and me. And we cut some tunes with Joe, which was fantastic. So yeah, Ginger was a man of few words on the session. I always liked Ginger, got on with him great, especially by email. If we were communicating by email, he was always really pleasant.
Right.
In person, he could be a little bit different, but he came in with a great attitude, and we cut some wonderful tracks with him. So, we were really blessed, really lucky to have him there. And, just his hi-hat on its own would be something to be celebrated. So there you go.
Not only that, you recorded in such a legendary studio. Tell us about that. I mean, the Abbey Road Studios. Tell us that had to be fantastic for you guys.
Yeah, I've recorded in there a few times over the last period of my life. It's just a wonderful atmosphere there, kind of like a church of music or something. You can sort of sense all the amazing music that has been made there historically, but also continues to be made there, whether it's in the big Studio One.
Right.
They do a lot of the Hollywood scores with the London Symphony Orchestra and other orchestras. So, I don't know whether it's Harry Potter or whatever. So there's all of that going on a daily basis. And then great artists from Elton John to Ed Sheeran to back in the day to the Beatles, obviously, famously.
Of course.
Pink Floyd. And it's great because it's an incredible studio in terms of the gear and the sound of the rooms, but they also they maintain some of the instruments that have always been there for 50, 60 years. So the actual pianos, the little upright pianos called Challen, there's 2 of them, I believe, and they wheel them around to different studios, and those are the pianos that you hear on the actual Beatles records.
I mean, it's such a great album. And it's not only an album, right? Tell us about the documentary. There's a documentary that goes along with this.
Yeah, it's a feature-length documentary with all of us lot hammering it out in the studio and also being interviewed. And it's, in a strange sort of way, it's kind of poignant. It's become a sort of document to the memory of the guys that were involved in the project that are no longer with us. Bernie Marsden from Whitesnake passed away earlier this year.
Right.
Ginger, Pete Brown, who mentioned, Pee Ellis passed away. Mo Foster, who's a celebrated bass player in the UK, played with Jeff Beck and all kinds of people. So yeah, it's a nice touch that we have this to remember them by. But it's also just documenting what's it like to get a bunch of human beings in a recording studio and make some music. So yeah, it's lovely that we have that as well.
And that's available for streaming, right?
Yes, I believe that in the US it's on Sunstream. I think there's an outlet called that, so people can check that out for sure. Yeah.
Doc G, you have something from Malcolm Bruce.
Oh yeah. First of all, man, what a band! Cream. I mean, listen, I had Disraeli gears, and the everything, Malcolm, with this band, and you should know this. Everything was so iconic. The solos, the intros, the fills, everything was so iconic, and is still iconic today. I know when you started out, you must have had that in you to see that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm still in awe of their achievement. They were kids, really. They were in their early 20s, and they were just making music, and it was the kind of convergence of a lot of different influences. My father was classically trained, but got into jazz and then got into the blues, and Ginger was getting into African rhythms, and Eric had really studied the blues in the sense that he'd really modeled, when he started out, he was kind of learning the craft from the greats, as it were, whether it was Albert King or BB or whatever. So they kind of converged into a pop band, but it wasn't really a pop band in the same way that, I mean, the Beatles, geniuses, but they weren't musicians in the same way. They were songwriters, great singers, and their craft was something slightly different, no less. But I think Cream were very unique in the sense that they were kind of working musicians, and they knew their craft. They could improvise. They understood jazz. They understood about expanding and stretching out and going into polyrhythmic stuff and flying by the seat of their pants in that way. And I think that's what you said, Doc G. In that sense that every little element of the music has become so iconic. But I'm not sure how conscious they were of that. They weren't going, okay, we're going to write a symphony, and that part must mean this. I mean, I think it was just an incredible amount of intuition and timing, and it just sort of all came together in the way that it came together, and three sort of kind of complex personalities and how they interacted on record and in person, apparently.
Oh, sure. and just to think too, like, even when Beethoven started out, he didn't think it was going to be iconic, and everybody knows that. So in the same respect, also Cream, being that band that they were, they had, like you said, it's like doing a live blues session and on the song, and having that put on regular radio was amazing to me, because they had so much fun with it. You can hear the fun they had with doing it, and I'm sure you guys had fun redoing it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the thing. They, we've become a bit corporatized, haven't we? I think in our mentality, not just in the music industry, but the conformity of thinking, and everyone trying to fit into this kind of model that the powers that be kind of putting on us from the top. And I think back then, almost 60 years ago now, there was just this little bit of window, whether you call it the hippie movement. I'm not even sure that that's a relevant term anymore, but it was just a kind of, because that was kind of subverted as well, right? So, but I mean, just there was that little bit of time where there was an innocence about that kind of creativity and that kind of exploration of music, as opposed to, here's the 2.5 or 3 minute pop song and everybody knows it's kind of, we wrote it on a graph. We figured out the mathematical formula for success. And, it's kind of, we've gone into a different world now. I mean, I actually just did an experiment because I'm writing my new record at the moment, and I'm not going to use it, but I typed into Chat GPT about an hour ago.
Okay.
Write me a song lyric based on a title. And in literally less than a second, it wrote me a whole song lyric. And it's terrible, but I could take it and I could fix it and it would be a song lyric. So I mean, it's interesting where we've headed, and I think Cream showed that there was that humanity. You know, it wasn't perfection. It was perfection within itself, but it wasn't. You know, it wasn't auto-tune, and it wasn't all of that stuff that we're now so used to.
Right.
Even in classical music sessions, they'll record 10 bars, stop, then they'll punch in, and then you hear a performance, and it's seamless, but it's not. It's rarely recorded as a performance. And I think, you know, those guys, I mean, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but certainly Fresh Cream was recorded in a matter of days in the studio. Disraeli Gears maybe a couple of weeks in New York City. But I mean, it was just a different kind of thing. It was just being somebody and expressing that rather than kind of fitting into some model that you're supposed to be. I think it's just, we can learn from that. All those great bands from that time, you know, they were doing it. There's a fundamental thing, and as you say, it's still fresh because of that. Because there's a kind of humanity in it. There's an authenticity and honesty in how they approach music.
Right. You sing and play bass on the album as well, right?
Yes, I'm playing some bass. I sing on one song, but I mean all the other. There's some incredible vocal performances. Paul Rogers sings "Born Under a Bad Sign." Mm-hmm. Deborah Bonham is John Bonham's sister. She's doing "I Feel Free" and "Badge," and Maggie Bell. Bobby Rush, a couple of tracks. That was an incredible honor to work with him. He flew in on the day, came into Abbey Road and cut these 2 songs with us. So, you know, just Nathan James, who I mentioned before, Bernie Marsden singing, and Joe Bonamassa singing as well. So, yeah, got some lovely performances from everybody involved.
Did Eric Clapton know about the project?
Yeah, I think Pete Brown reached out to him at the time and he declined to take part. But we actually made, before Pete passed away earlier this year, at the beginning of the year, we made his final solo record, and Eric's appearing on the title track.
Oh, that's
that. It's called The Shadow Club. So that's going to be out. I'm hearing it might be out in May 2024. It's on Flatiron Records. So yeah, Eric played some beautiful guitar on the title track. It's really, really nice. So I think maybe he just thought, I don't really want to do Cream songs, but I'll do something for Pete because it was an original song. So
right.
So anyway, got that.
Before the album was out, there was also some singles released, right? Sunshine of Your Love, which is absolutely fantastic, right? I think The Politician as well.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Sunshine of Your Love, that was one of the ones we did with Ginger and Joe Bonamassa. So it was just great, you know. Ginger turned up with his drum tech, and Joe turned up, and we just had some fun with it. Neil Murray on bass, Abbas Dodu on percussion. I'm playing piano on that track. And yeah, I just think Ginger's playing is just superlative on the track, because if you listen to it, it's not a metronomic. He's playing like a human being, and it's all time's moving all over his phrasing, but it's still this gorgeous thing. It holds together because he understands time. Time is not meant to be. It's great. I mean, I love dance music that is like that, right? You know, because that's a different thing. But with this, there's this human being moving around and playing music, playing melodies within the drums alone. So I mean, even just the drums on that track.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Wonderful. Absolutely love it. And of course, you play multi-instruments as well. I mean, and you play the bass. Did your dad give you any advice on playing bass or instruments?
I don't know. I mean, I just grew up playing music with him and jamming. So sometimes he'd get on the Hammond organ, I'd be on the piano or the guitar or whatever. And we recorded lots of things just in his little home studio. We'd do demos of stuff. So I think he really sat down and taught me, but I just kind of learned by osmosis. And yes, I mean, we talked lots and lots about music, and we, you know, as I got older and more competent, he got me involved in his records, and he even turned up to a few of my gigs and sat in as well. So you know, it's just the encouragement. But he wasn't that kind of person. He wanted people. I think he always wanted people to find their own way into things. And he was always, I mean, having been in the studio with him many times, working with him on records, I just noticed that he did that. He's like, yeah, you do your thing. And then if he felt he needed to direct something, he'd come in and he'd gently direct something. But he wanted people to be expressive. And I think that's a really good thing sometimes, to allow people to find their space.
Sure. When did you decide you wanted to make this a professional career as a musician? And what did your dad think about that?
When did it decide for me, you mean? I guess by the age of 9 or something like that. I mean, I was playing the piano from the age of 5, studying classical repertoire, which I'm continuing to do. And then by the age of 8 or 9, I was starting to write music, notate it.
Right.
That's a whole other side to what I do. And then I picked up the bass guitar and I picked up the electric guitar a year after that. I was about 9, I think, so 10. So yeah, I think by that age I knew this is what I want to do. What else am I going to do? Become a bank manager? I don't know.
Have you had other jobs before being a musician?
I've had loads of. Yeah, you mean if I have to pay my rent and I haven't got enough gigs for the month? Yeah, absolutely.
Don't be a musician.
Yeah, I've done all kinds of things.
I'm sure.
You don't want to know what I've had to do.
Doc, go ahead.
Yeah, when you're a musician, and most of us know that, there's no, unless you're so big, you don't have to worry about money, the royalties and everything. But other than that, if you're just starting out, or even if you're somebody's name, you still got to make a way for yourself, and that's something that you're probably learning out right now, because
yeah. I mean, as I say, I'm making a new record, and I'm working with some agents to book tours. So I've got the UK probably June and November next year, and then Europe, and then the US, and it's, as you say, it's like building it organically. I mean, sure, I've got to get more followers on TikTok, otherwise I'm not going to have a career. But apart from all of that, there's still, I mean, I was actually in Germany a couple of days ago to do a gig with the Hamburg Blues Band, and I was with Arthur Brown. He sat in, and I've met Arthur a bunch of times before and opened up for him once in London. And it's that thing, you're in a room in a little village called Warpswede, just outside Bremen, and 400 people turn up into this music hall, and we put on a show, and you're there and you're connecting with each of those people, and they are there because they love music. That's kind of still, I think, the best way to build a career, just show after show. If you can find a way to promote it and get it out there in front of people. There's this whole other side to the industry with algorithms and kind of buying your success. It's just strange. So, I don't need to tell you guys, it's a strange time in the industry to sort of figure that all out. So I think real musicians tend to just want to be out there playing in front of people and winning people over in that way.
Well, Malcolm, you also have it a lot harder too. And I'll explain to you this way, because everybody expects you to live up to your dad. Right?
Yes.
And it's like, well, wait a minute. His dad was so iconic. Can you still fill the shoes? And I'm not saying that because I'm saying it because other people I know will say it. And
sure.
You feel that pressure all the time?
Yeah. Look, I've seen it from all angles. The thing is that I'm not my father. I'm developing, and it's coming out more and more, my own style of songwriting, my own approach to vocals, my own approach to how I play. And it would be silly for me to try and fill his shoes, because he's another human nervous system with all his stuff,
Right.
But I'm in awe of my dad. I love him. I respect him. But I'm doing my own thing and charting my own path. But I mean, having said that, yes, the industry go, hey, have you thought about playing Cream? And then do your thing. And so you kind of have to balance that, because I suppose whoever it is, whether it's Sean Lennon or whoever, Sean's on that level, on a completely different level to me. But I'm sure he's had his challenges, because I really respect Sean as an artist, but it is that thing. Like, so what was it like growing up with your dad as a famous person? And, have you thought about doing a cover of a Cream song, a Beatles song, or a Cream song, or whatever, whichever context. So, there's all of that stuff swirling around. And I think for me, I think my next record that I release and promoting it properly and getting on the road, I think it will be a major statement for me to kind of step away from just being the son of Jack Bruce. I hope, but even if I was only ever just the son of Jack Bruce, there's nothing wrong with that either. So.
No. In fact, a lot of times it will open doors, but then it will also shut doors, right? So a lot of people don't understand that.
There's all of that, and then people take advantage of you as well, But I mean, that's just the music industry. You have to make sure that you're around people that are trustworthy. So I've had all kinds of experiences so far in my career, for sure. But I'm in a good space, I think this record, Heavenly Cream, is a lovely statement from everybody involved, as a kind of tribute to that. And those things are helpful. I get to speak to you guys about the project and also mention that I'm doing my thing as well. So it's just great to be able to be out here promoting stuff and building. So we'll see over the next period of time what happens.
Yeah, make sure I get the new projects. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh, absolutely.
Your own album, as you were talking about, Fake Humans, Real Dolls. Where did the title come from?
Well, it's just a play on words. I mean, I'm trying to sort of explore and express from my point of view what's going on in the world at the moment. You guys know we're in a kind of crazy time politically, socially. There's so much hatred in the world, but really we should be like, why are we doing all of that? Where's all of that coming from? Is it trauma? Is it stress? All the things that people are dealing with. And then there's artificial intelligence and, moving into the future, are we going to have humans anymore? Or is it going to become a kind of transhumanist concept or a post-humanist concept with technology merging with humans over the next period of our history? So there's all of this kind of stuff going on. But then there's also just, hugging trees and sitting with your loved ones and all of that too. So, it's an album attempting to find balance with all of those things in terms of lyrics. Musically, it's not blues, it's kind of alternative rock, but it's very much my own style that I'm developing my own sound. So, but I'll definitely make sure you guys get it. Sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, please, yeah.
Is there going to be a tour as well? I think you had mentioned that.
Yeah. I'm working with some agents, so I think back end of next year I'll come over to the States and do a tour. But UK first, probably in June, and then Europe after that, and then the US, and then hopefully just keep going round and round forever. Well, how many gigs a year do you think somebody can do without falling over? 120? I don't know.
Wow.
And you're basically young too, but I've seen it happen to a lot of. They get burned out quickly. They miss their families. People don't understand. But you guys, you're on tour so much that you really don't have a regular life where we are. More, you're getting ready for the show. You're practicing for the show. You're going to the show. You're coming home from the show. There's so many different. Now I understand it. I'm sure some do, but some don't.
Oh, it's a huge undertaking. I think people don't always understand what it takes to sustain a career in music in that sense. And I think in previous times people used to like party all the time on the road, and that contributes to burnout pretty quick. So I kind of got into yoga and meditation, and I'm a vegan. Not that I judge anyone for whatever else they do, but I've kind of learned like what works for me, so that I don't, so that I can still get on the stage and give 100% without sort of falling over or saying, "Oh, sorry guys, I've just got to go there and sleep for 20 minutes." So to go and do something for a few minutes, I'm just going to catch up on some rest, and then I'll come. So I mean, it's a huge thing. There's everything that's going on behind the scenes in order to get a show on the road, to promote it. It all costs money, and making records, and the industry is very different to what it 30 years ago people were getting big advances and all of that kind of stuff, and it's a little bit different now, and I think artists also, we're in a position where we have to weigh up the odds. Sure, if I get offered a record deal, I'm giving away 80% of my profits or whatever. Is that actually worth it? What are the record label going to bring to the table for taking the majority of my money, as opposed to finding a way to do things independently? So you see increasingly a lot of artists just deciding, okay, I'm going to do this as a cottage industry, an independent thing, maybe be a bit under the radar, but get a loyal following and just make a good living and be able to do things in the way that I want to do them rather than, the way that an A&R guy wants them done. So yeah, there's just millions of elements to having a career right now. But I think, if you're a musician, you're a musician. You can't really do anything else. You just would never be satisfied. So it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I mean, you worked with so many people like Elton John, right? You toured with so many great people. Tell us about some of the other people that you toured with.
Yeah, actually, the thing with Elton was just a song that I played bass on a Frankie Miller record.
Mm-hmm.
So that was absolutely wonderful. Steve Cropper plays guitar on that track. And so, yeah, I've done lots of things. I had a band with Leslie West and Corky Lang.
Yep.
We did a bunch of gigs around 2009, 2010.
Wow.
And subsequently, I worked with Corky quite a lot. Both amazing guys. Just all kinds of things, I guess, over the years, just trying to stay busy and stay out of trouble.
When you first came on the show, you mentioned Chuck Berry. Did you work with Chuck Berry?
No, not, unfortunately. Although, interestingly enough, in 1964, way before I was born, my dad was in the Graham Bond organization.
Right.
And they toured with Chuck. Chuck came, Robert Stigwood, the manager, who then went on to manage Cream, he organized a kind of package tour for Chuck to come over to the UK. So they did this UK tour, and the Graham Bond organization were his backing band, and also Denny Lane and Moody Blues were on that tour as well. And when I met Denny a few years ago, another guy that sadly left us just a few days ago, and Denny we spent an evening together in LA at an event, and Denny was just kind of telling me all these amazing stories about that tour and them all hanging out together with Chuck and everything. And so yes, I didn't get to work with Chuck, but my dad did. So there you go.
Your dad encountered so many famous people like Jimi Hendrix, right? The Grateful Dead, right? Did you meet a lot of those people as well?
No, I mean, I wasn't really born in time for those guys, but I certainly met a lot of people subsequent to that. My dad worked with all kinds of amazing people. Gary Moore, for instance.
Right.
David Sancious, incredible musician from Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band and all kinds of other things. He was in my dad's band. And actually, David gave me, it was Christmas. My 10th, I was 10 years old. It was Christmas, and we went to have Christmas lunch with David Sancious and his family. And then David gave me my dad had given me an electric guitar for Christmas. And David took me in a room, and he gave me my first guitar lesson as a small child. So all kinds of things like that. Yeah, lots of amazing people were around, and Alan Hodsworth later on.
Oh wow, I love Alan.
Yeah, he used to come to our house to rehearse with my dad.
Wow.
And so, I mean, Alan was just incredible. So, I mean, I guess, just again, like if I'm sort of playing outside on my bike or something with my friends, and in the distance I'm hearing this otherworldly guitar god, I'm sure it sort of went in my ears, even if I wasn't completely conscious of it at the time. So hopefully there's a little bit of it that's rubbed off on me somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure your dad is very proud of you.
Oh, well, you're very kind.
Good, Dutchie.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I'm sure he is, definitely. I had an experience to see Jason Bonham, and we interviewed Deborah Bonham and, of course, Bullock. Yeah, Peter Bullock.
Yes, Peter, yeah.
And they talked a lot about, how Jason started out, if, his dad showed him how to play the drums and the special ways. Now you've been with all these other people. Have you learned any different techniques with the bass or different ways to maybe to make the sound come out a little bit different? I used to play bass years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think bass tends to be, it's all in the mind, really. It's a weird thing, isn't it? I mean, the way I approach bass is a very simple approach to it. I don't kind of do all the slapping stuff or two-handed, it doesn't really interest me.
Right.
And because I'm kind of, so I kind of just, I tried to find my personality in just the choice of phrasing and the choice of notes that I use. And but also I don't always see myself as a bass player because I play the guitar And I'm hoping my guitar playing on this new record will show that that's kind of more what I do.
Right.
And again, it's not a technical thing, although I can play fast and all that, but it's more just what works for the music in hand, rather than it being, okay, I'm going to use lick 41B, and it's not that approach. It's very intuitive. Some things need to be worked out intellectually, but a lot of it is just felt, in simple songwriting. I think you're just finding things through texture and what works in the context of a song, what supports a melody, to make it music. Music is fluid, it's dynamic, and I like to hear those things. I like to hear dynamics in songs rather than everything is at 0 dB. Everything is just the same dynamic. I mean, that's great too, but music ebbs and flows. It has.
Yep.
That's what makes us feel. When something dips down into quietness, that gives us a more reflective moment. And then when it's really pushing, that's another kind of energy. And I think, it's the representation of all those elements in music. I suppose it's like jazz or classical music or whatever, but I don't think genre has anything to do with it. I think we're still limiting ourselves. Maybe it's how pop music became what it is through radio. So maybe there was this, okay, you've got to have a 2.5 minute song, or what was it when it first started out? 2 minutes? I don't even know. Like really short little songs. And
2:59, less than 3 minutes.
And you can't have a long intro. Sorry, you play it. Sorry, that intro is way too long. Cut the intro. So I mean, it's just rules, I suppose, just because of radio play and all of that kind of stuff. And then everyone just kind of assumed, okay, that's the way it is, and so everyone fits into that. There's something beautiful about that, but also it's a little limiting because there's so many. It's infinite music. It's just it's like putty. You can pull it in any direction, and that's when it gets interesting.
That's funny, Malcolm, because when you said that, I brought up a thing with me, as I always like to play the expanded version, not the album version, not the edited version. And I always used to get in trouble when I was a DJ for playing it a little bit longer because it was supposed to cut off as far as time, and so the news would come on later, and then everything else was later. Programmers would come out and yell at me about it. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I just wanted to play that version.
I bet, yeah. We've got our sponsors to think about.
What's that, Malcolm?
I said we've got our sponsors to think about.
No. The sponsors are fine. It's the news and everything that was later. So I worry about sponsors. I make sure I played them.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's just we're still like kids in the playground. Humanity, aren't we? We're still learning. We're still kind of growing. We like to think that we know something. We don't really know anything, and I think that's just reflected in music. It can be ever evolving instead of it being this fixed thing that becomes a commodity. I mean, there's nothing wrong with money and economic systems. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have those, but what I mean is that it just gets a bit too extreme. Instead of going, these people are artists. They need the space to be able to express things, and we, as the industry and as the public, it would be good if they allowed that. So, like, actually, okay, let me give this a chance. Something a little different, something a little more expansive. Maybe we'll find that again when everyone gets a bit tired of the current scene. Maybe it'll go back to something a bit more creative. I don't know. I'm not putting down. I mean, there's amazing stuff like that, of course, but I'm just talking from my own perspective.
Your dad was so open-minded when it came to music. He was so diverse in music, right?
Yeah, I think I inherited quite a lot of that. We'd listen to classical music, Qawwali, Pakistani music. I mean, all kinds of things, jazz, the blues, rock, everything really, and I think that's a really good approach. Just be really open-minded about music, but also about life, right? I mean, everyone has to be right all the time in the world, and it's just I think everyone's sort of become crazy, right? Like, no, I'm right. No, you're right. No, I'm wrong. No, you're wrong. I'm right. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. So
what's some of the bands that you grew up with listening to?
I don't
Your
know.
influences.
I don't know really. I mean, just everything and anything. I mean, I'm very into classical music, and I'm writing classical music as well. You know, orchestral stuff. So I was listening to a lot of Stravinsky and Beethoven, all that kind of repertoire, that kind of history of Western classical, the Western classical tradition. But I was listening to Miles, to a lot of the jazz stuff as well, and still do. And then as far as like rock and pop, I don't know. Hendrix was certainly, by the age of 9 or 10, I was listening to a lot of Jimmy, and the Beatles. I remember Revolver, listening to Revolver when I was like 7 or 8 or something like that. That was pretty mind blowing. But just everything really, anything and everything. I just stay open to it all, and whatever I come across, I go, you know, like everybody, just.
What do you think made Cream the iconic group that it became?
Well, I think, as I said, the different influences that they all had, and somehow they kind of came together. It was at the right moment in history, where they found a way through. I mean, the famous story goes that they were playing, I guess in the States, maybe the West Coast, they were playing shows, right. And the audiences, they were playing the songs, and the audiences kind of started shouting out, "Hey, just play, man," you know. And then they kind of said, "Well, yeah, we can do that." So they just started doing it. And I think those elements, of course, you know, the Dead were, you know, what was the record for their concerts? 18 hours or something? I don't know, but and I love that too. But it was a very different proposition, a very different sound. And I think the trio format, the power trio, you've got 3 guys that actually make a bigger sound than a band with 5 people in it. There's the space for 3 musicians to fully express themselves in that kind of sonic spectrum, and the freedom, because there's that 3, the number 3 somehow allows that freedom of expression. If you had a second guitar player, then that guy would probably have to play rhythm while the other guy played, you know, so it immediately makes it a bit more limited. And I think with that power trio format, they were able to really stretch out and express things. And it's also really nice to hear things in a very stripped down way, you know, so that it makes the musicians themselves think more creatively. How am I going to express this idea without kind of relying on the choir and the 75-piece orchestra in the background or whatever? So yeah, there's just so many elements. I mean, obviously the songs are amazing too.
Of course,
some lovely songs, and also their respect for the tradition that they were influenced. One of the traditions they were influenced by, the blues tradition. You know, the respect in the sense that they recorded and performed. You know, whether it was Spoonful or Sitting on Top of the World or Crossroads or whatever, they kind of took those things and paid homage to them themselves. So it's kind of mixed bag, very eclectic band in its own way. And I think each song stands on its own, so it doesn't become, it's not a generic thing, it's not consistent, it moves around a lot, with lots of different things going on. You know, great bass playing that doesn't sound like any, you know, just my dad had discovered that kind of personality on the bass, and you've got Ginger's crazy, amazing polyrhythmic approach, and then Eric just wailing on, you know, that kind of, at that time, his Gibson Marshall sound, you know, that has become so iconic. Right. It's incredible, really. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that made them unique in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rocky run, too. I mean, because they would stay together, then they'd break up for a while and then come back and then tour again, right? I mean, it wasn't...
Well, they were actually together for less than 3 years.
Yeah, and what an impact in 3 years.
Can you imagine 3 years? God.
Yeah. I mean, if only they'd been more reasonable people, they probably would have stayed together longer. I don't know. No, yeah. I mean, I think it's, you know, my dad talked a lot about it, and I think at that time, the amount of touring they were doing was kind of not really what bands had been used to previously. And so I think they had a kind of burnout by the end of it. And so they all moved on to other things. But yeah, I mean, they achieved a lot within just under 3 years. You know, all those recordings and touring. So
Your dad worked in so many bands before Cream and after Cream, right? He was in a lot of bands.
Yes. Well, we had a guy in the UK called Alexis Corner. He had a band called Alexis Corner's Blues Incorporated, and I think he was a promoter bringing US acts over very early on in the early 60s, blues artists, and a lot of people went through Alexis's band. So my dad ended up joining that band in 1961, I believe.
Right.
And Charlie Watts was the drummer at that time in the band. Then when the Stones were formed and Charlie left, Charlie recommended Ginger, so Ginger became the drummer. And they were all playing those clubs, the Marquee, the Ealing Club, all those clubs that all those bands, Moody Blues, all those guys before they were anybody. Mick Jagger used to come up on the side of the stage with Alexis's gigs and say, "Hey man, can I sit in?" And they would let him sing. And this was before the Stones.
Wow.
So they all knew each other. That kind of British music scene. They were all kind of on that local scene. And then literally a few years later, they were all iconic and world famous. I don't think any of them expected that. But yes, I mean, my dad had a stint with Manfred Mann. He plays bass on Pretty Flamingo, the song on the record. I played with John Mayall, and I think that's when he first met Eric. He played with him. Lots of different things over the years, and then 1966, Queen were formed, and then they split up at 1960, end of 68. So it's 96, something like that.
Your dad kept in touch with Eric, right? Even during Eric's solo tour and solo career.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, they did stay in touch, and my dad stayed in touch with Ginger. And then, actually, I was in one of my first bands that I was in, signed bands that I was in, called Lost City. I was living in Hollywood on Sunset and Vine. How romantic. Wow. It's 1993, and my dad called me and said, "Hey, I'm coming into town. We're being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Do you want to come to the induction ceremony?" So I went and hung out with them, and so they actually played together then at the ceremony for the first time since. They played separately, together. Obviously, Ginger and Eric had Blind Faith just after Cream, and so they'd all stayed in touch and done bits and pieces, but they actually Cream themselves played together in 93 again, so I got to see them. That was the first time I got to see them live, because I wasn't alive the first time.
Wow. So. Pretty awesome. Doc G, go ahead.
Yeah, hey Malcolm, we gotta run in a little bit, so I just want to ask if you can do a favor for us before we go.
Yes.
Basically say who you are, where you're from, and what you're playing, and you're listening to the Jimmy Deal Show, and you're on HamiltonRadio.net.
Okay, that's a lot to remember in my brain at this time of night. So just tell me, it's the Jimmy Dean Show.
Jimmy Deal.
Jimmy Deal.
Yeah, exactly. You see what I mean? I'm making a mistake.
Jimmy Dean, I like some sausage right
Jimmy
now.
Dean, James Dean, yeah.
There you go. Great actor.
No, it's all cool. It's all good.
Jimmy Deal Show.
On Hamilton Radio.
All right. Okay. How many takes do I get?
You can a couple takes. You can do 3 or 4 if you want. Whatever you want. You can do versions of it, whatever you want.
Okay. Hi, this is Malcolm Bruce talking about Heavenly Cream on the Jimmy Deal Show on Hamilton Radio.
Wonderful.
That's perfect.
One more?
Go ahead. Sure.
Oh, no. If that's good enough.
It's good. You're good.
All right, man.
Sorry, I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for being here again, Jimmy.
Yeah, just tell us about Heavenly Cream, how to get it. And give us
sure. Yeah. So Heavenly Cream, if you check out the label website, it's called Quarto Valley Records. That's Quarto. Bruce Quarto is the label head. So QuartoValleyRecords.com, and that has links to Amazon and all the outlets everywhere. You can get the download. You can get a CD, and there's a double vinyl package as well.
Nice.
It's really lovely. 15 songs made with love, and check it out. And for me, MalcolmBruceMusic.com with links to my social media, and I will stay in touch with you guys about my record for next year.
Yeah, please keep us posted.
Please do. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to, like I said, I'd love to showcase it for you and get it to my listeners. Yeah, absolutely.
Thandy you so much. Yeah,
and we hope everybody looks at the documentary too. The documentary is available for
yes.
Yeah, Sunstream. Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Malcolm. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Cheers.
God
Take
bless.
care.
Have a good
Great to
night.
see
You
you.
too, man.
Happy holiday as well.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, you too.
Take
Thanks
care.
so much.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Malcolm.
Bye. Bye.
Poor guy. I feel bad for him. So Jimmy, who we got coming up?
Coming up at 8:30, you have the Burrito Brothers.
Burrito Brothers. Boy, Burrito Brothers. Yeah, wow, I can't wait to talk to them. They got a Christmas album out.
They got a Christmas album out.
So I want everybody to know that they can hear their new tracks on HamiltonRadio.net, plus all the other Christmas music that's on right now, holiday music, the rest of the month on there. And hope you enjoy it. And a lot of great stuff on there, a lot of new stuff, a lot of great new stuff on there.
Absolutely.
All right, Jimmy, I'll see you in about a half an hour.
Okay, Doc, we'll see you about 8:30.
About 15 minutes, I'll see you.
Yeah, okay. So I hope everybody comes back and joins us for the Burrito Brothers.
Bye, everybody. And thank you, Tom, for listening. I think Facebook is blocking us, by the way.
Are they really? Oh, that's
yeah.
All right. Well,
I put it everywhere.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, Cindy. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.